Poetry, or verse, is the manipulation of language with respect to meaning, meter, sound, and rhythm. Fiction, a literary work usually presented in prose form that is not true. It is the product of the writer's imagination. Nonfiction, a literary work that is based on facts. In other words, the material is true. The purposeful inclusion of false information is considered dishonest, but the expression of opinions are. Style, the manner in which a writer uses language in prose or poetry. Tone, the attitude of the writer or narrator towards the theme of, subject of, or characters in a work. Sometimes the attitude is stated, but it is most often implied through word choices. Point of view, the angle from which a story is told. It is the perspective of the narrator, which is established by the author. Alliteration, the repetition of the first sounds or stressed syllables in words in close proximity. Assonance, the repetition of identical or similar vowel sounds, particularly in stressed syllables, in words in close proximity. Onomatopoeia refers to words that imitate sounds. It is sometimes called echoism. Meter, a recurring pattern of stressed and unstressed syllables in language, creates a rhythm when spoken. Iambic, an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. Anaspastic, two unstressed syllables followed by a stressed syllable. Trochaic, one stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable. Dactylic, a stressed syllable followed by two unstressed syllables. Spondaic, two consecutive syllables that are stressed almost equally. Pyrrhic, two consecutive syllables that are equally unstressed. Blank verse, unrhymed verse that consists of lines of iambic pentameter, which is 5 feet of unstressed and stressed syllables. The rhythm that results is the closest to natural human speech. It is the most commonly used type of verse because of its versatility. Free verse lacks regular patterns of poetic feet but has more controlled rhythm than prose in terms of pace and pauses. Short story, prose fiction that has the same elements as a novel, such as plot, characters, and point of view. Primary research material, material that comes from the horse's mouth. It is a document or object that was created by the person under study or during the time period under study. Secondary research material. Research material is anything that is not primary. Stanza, group of lines. Affixes are syllables attached to the beginning or end of a word to make a derivative or inflectional form of a word. Prefixes, a syllable that appears at the beginning of a word that, in combination with the root or base word, creates a specific meaning. Root words, the base of a word to which affixes can be added. Suffix, syllable that appears at the end of a word that, in combination with the root or base word, creates a specific meaning. Context clues, words or phrases that help the reader figure out the meaning of an unknown word. They are built into a sentence or paragraph by the writer to help the reader develop a clear understanding of the writer's message. Literal comprehension refers to the skills the reader uses to deal with the actual words in a text. It involves skills such as identifying the topic, sentence, main idea, important facts, and supporting details, using context clues to determine the meaning of a word, and sequencing events. Critical comprehension. Puppetry. The purpose of using puppetry is to generate ideas, encourage imagination, and foster language development. Using a puppet helps a child become the character and therefore experience a different outlook. Drama activities. Fun learning experiences that capture a child's attention, engage the imagination, and motivate vocabulary expansion. Simile, a comparison between two unlike things using the word like or as. Examples are Robert Burns' sentence, "Oh, my love's like a red rose," or the common expression "as pretty as a picture." Metaphor, a direct comparison between two unlike things without the use of like or as. One thing is identified as the other instead of simply compared to it. An example is D.H. Lawrence's sentence, "My soul is a dark forest." Personification, the giving of human characteristics to a non-human thing or idea. An example is the hurricane held its frightful rage. Synecdoche, the use of a part of something to signify the whole. For example, boots on the ground could be used to describe soldiers in a field. Metonymy, the use of one term that is closely associated with another to mean the other. An example is referring to the crown to refer to the monarchy. Graphic organizer, visual outlines or templates that help students grasp key concepts and master subject matter by simplifying them down to basic points. They also help guide students through processes related to any subject area or task. Summarization, the student reviews the main point of the reading selection and identifies important details. For nonfiction, a good summary will briefly describe the main arguments and the examples that support those arguments. For fiction, a good summary will identify the main characters and events of the story. Question generation, a good reader will constantly ask questions while reading about comprehension, vocabulary, connections to personal knowledge or experience, predictions, etc. Textual marking. Learning approach. This theory assumes that language is first learned by imitating the speech of adults. It is then solidified in school through drills about the rules of language structures. Linguistic approach. Championed by Noam Chomsky in the 1950s, this theory proposes that the ability to use a language is innate. This is a biological approach rather than one based on cognition or social patterning. Cognitive approach, developed in the 1970s and based on the work of Piaget, this theory states that children must develop appropriate cognitive skills before. Sociocognitive approach. In the 1970s, some researchers proposed that language development is a complex interaction of linguistic, social, and cognitive influences. Fairy tale, a fictional story involving humans, magical events, and usually animals. Fable, a tale in which animals, plants, and forces of nature act like humans. Tall tale, exaggerates human abilities or describes unbelievable events as if the story were true. Often, the narrator seems to have witnessed the event described. The ad hominem or against the person argument. This type attacks the character or behavior of a person taking a stand on an issue rather than the issue itself. The statement that fat slob wants higher taxes is an example of this type of argument. Hasty generalizations. These are condemnations of a group based on the behavior of one person or part. An example of this type of argument is someone saying that all McDonald's restaurants are lousy because he or she had a bad experience at one location. Faulty causation. This is assigning the wrong cause to an event. An example is blaming a flat tire on losing a lucky penny rather than on driving over a bunch of nails. Bandwagon effect. This is the argument that if everybody else is doing something, it must be a good thing to do. The absurdity of this type of argument is highlighted by the question, if everybody else is jumping off a cliff, should you jump too? Inductive reasoning, using particulars to draw a general conclusion. Deductive reasoning, it involves using general facts or premises to come to a specific conclusion. Theme, the central idea of a work. It is the thread that ties all the elements of a story together and gives them purpose. Round characters. Characters have complex personalities, just like real people. They are more commonly found in longer works such as novels or full-length plays. Flat characters. Characters display only a few personality traits and are based on stereotypes. Examples include the bigoted redneck, the lazy bum, or the absent-minded professor. Dynamic characters. Characters are those that change or grow during the course of the narrative. They may learn important lessons, fall in love, or take new paths. Static characters. Characters remain the same throughout a story. Adjective. This is a word that modifies or describes a noun or pronoun. Examples are a green apple or every computer. Adverb. This is a word that modifies a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. Conjunction. Gerund. This is a verb form used as a noun, most ending. An example is, walking is good exercise. Infinitive. Noun. This is a word that names a person, place, thing, idea, or quality. Direct object states to whom what an action was committed. It answers the question to what. An example is, Joan served the meal. Indirect object states for whom what an action was committed. An example is, Joan served us the meal. Preposition. This is a word that links a noun or pronoun to other parts of a sentence. Examples include above, by, for, in, out, through, and to. Prepositional phrase. This is a combination of a preposition and a noun or pronoun. Examples include across the bridge, against the grain, below the horizon, and toward the sunset. Pronoun. This is a word that represents a specific noun in a generic way. A pronoun functions like a noun in a sentence. Examples include I, she, he, it, myself, they, these, what, all, and anybody. Sentence. This is a group of words that expresses a thought or conveys information as an independent unit of speech. A complete sentence must contain a noun and a verb. However, all the other parts of speech can also be represented in a sentence. Verb. This is a word or phrase in a sentence that expresses action or a state of being. Colons. A colon is used to set up a list, direct readers to examples or explanations, introduce quotations or dialogue. Semicolons. Semicolons. A semicolon is used to join related independent clauses. Join independent clauses connected by conjunctive adverbs. Separate items in a series if commas would be confusing. Syntax refers to the rules related to how to properly structure sentences and phrases. Illustrative paragraph or essay explains a general statement through the use of specific examples. The writer starts with a topic sentence that is followed by one or more examples that clearly relate to and support the topic. Narrative paragraph tells a story. Like a news report, it tells the who, what, when, where, why, and how of an event. Descriptive paragraph. This type of writing appeals to the five senses to describe a person, place, or thing so that the readers can see the subject in their imaginations. Space order is most often used in descriptive writing to indicate place or position. Process paragraph. There are two kinds of process papers: the how-to that gives step-by-step directions on how to do something, and the explanation paper that tells how an event occurred or how something works. A definition paragraph or essay describes what a word or term means. Definition by synonym. The term is defined by comparing it to a more familiar term that the reader can more easily understand. Definition by class. Most commonly used in exams, papers, and reports. The class definition first puts the term in a larger category or class and then describes the distinguishing characteristics or details of the term that differentiate it from other members of the class. Definition by negation. The term is defined by stating what it is not and then saying what it is. Drafting. Creating an early version of a paper. Revising. The process of making major changes to a draft in regards to clarity of purpose, focus, audience, organization, and content. Editing. The process of making changes in style, word choice, tone, examples, and arrangement. These are more minor than the changes made during revision. Proofreading. Performing a final check and correcting errors in punctuation, spelling, grammar, and usage. It also involves looking for parts of the paper that may be omitted. Declarative sentence makes a statement and is punctuated by a period at the end. Interrogative sentence asks a question and is punctuated by a question mark at the end. Exclamatory sentence shows strong emotion and is punctuated by an exclamation mark at the end. Imperative gives a direction or command and may be punctuated by an exclamation mark or a period. Parallelism. Subjects, objects, verbs, modifiers, phrases, and clauses can be structured in sentences to balance one with another through a similar grammatical pattern. Euphemism. This is a cover-up word that avoids the explicit meaning of an offensive or unpleasant term by substituting a vaguer image. An example is using expired instead of dead. Hyperbole. This is an example or phrase that exaggerates for effect. Climax. This refers to the process of building up to a dramatic high point through a series of phrases or sentences. It can also refer to the high point or most intense event in a story. Bathos. This is an attempt to evoke pity, sorrow, or nobility that goes overboard and becomes ridiculous. It is an insincere pathos and a letdown. It is also sometimes called an anticlimax, although an anticlimax might be intentionally included for comic or satiric effect. Oxymoron. This refers to two terms that are used together for contradictory effect, usually in the form of an adjective that doesn't fit the noun. An example is a new classic. Irony. This refers to a difference between what is and what ought to be, or between what is said and what is meant. Malapropism. This is confusing one word with another, similar-sounding word. Transitional words. Used to signal a relationship. They are used to link thoughts and sentences. Coordinating conjunction is one that can join two independent clauses by placing a comma and a coordinating conjunction between them. Subordination conjunction is one that joins a subordinate clause and an independent clause and establishes the relationship between them. Run-on sentence is one that tries to connect two independent clauses without the needed conjunction or punctuation and makes it hard for the reader to figure out where one sentence ends and the other starts. Comma splices occurs when a comma is used to join two independent clauses without a proper conjunction. Fragment, an incomplete sentence which is one that does not have a subject to go with the verb or vice versa. Speaking volume should be appropriate to the room and adjusted according to whether or not a microphone is used. The speaker should not shout at the audience, mumble, or speak so softly that his or her voice is inaudible. Speaking pace and pronunciation. The speaker shouldn't talk so fast that his or her speech is unintelligible, nor should the speaker speak so slowly as to be boring. The speaker should enunciate words clearly. Speaking body language and gestures can add to or distract from the message, so annoying, repetitive gestures such as waving hands about, flipping hair, or staring at one spot should be avoided. Good posture is critical. Speaking word choice. The speaker should use a vocabulary level that fits the age and interest level of the audience. Vocabulary may be casual or formal depending on the audience. Speaking visual aids. The speaker should use whatever aids will enhance the presentation, such as props, models, media, etc., but should not use anything that will be distracting or unmanageable. Pre-listening activity. This establishes the purpose of the lesson and engages students' background knowledge. This activity should ask students to think about and discuss something they already know about the topic. Alternatively, the teacher can provide background information. Listening activity. This requires the listener to obtain information and then immediately do something with that information. Post-listening activity. This is an evaluation process that allows students to judge how well they did with the listening task. Other language skills can be included in the activity.